What's going on, Tamers? It is me, International Doggo Fan East, and I say that because today's deck profile video features Digimon's best doggo, Huckmon. Yeah, I mean Jesmon's there too, but I think we all know why we're really playing the deck. But seriously, in the BT13 VS Royal Knights set, Jesmon did receive support at every single level, including the most crucial level 5 where some of its previous cards have been restricted to 1. And so now with full support I had no choice but to sit down, build the deck again, and give it a go. Anyway, let's take a look at the cards in the deck, a couple of crucial combos, as well as my thoughts overall of the deck in the current meta. So first up, we're going to talk about the Digi-Eggs in this deck, and we're going to have 4 copies of the BT8 Goodymon. He lets us draw a card if we have 6,000 or more DP on attack, and for this deck I feel that's a pretty low threshold to get to. And while the deck does have more cards and does feel overall more consistent than it did in the past, it still feels like you're really trying to collect all your pieces as soon as possible. As another option, some people do run 4 copies of Sistermon, who gives you +1 memory whenever you attack if you're level 7 Digimon or higher, but we'll talk a little bit more about my choices there when I get to the level 7s of the deck. So moving on to our level 3s, the first one is going to be the BT6 Huckmon, who still sees a ton of play in BT13. He's a fantastic searcher, look at 5, grab 2 cards, and because this is a Jesmon focused deck, he basically grabs any 2 cards in the deck. Next up, we're going to have 4 copies of the BT13 Huckmon, where this guy has an effect we're going to see a lot of out of the BT13 cards, and that is whenever you play a Sistermon, you can Digivolve this guy into a Bow Huckmon for free. Additionally, in effect, we're going to be seeing a lot more of out of the BT13 cards that in an inheritance, whenever you play a Sistermon, you can gain 1 memory. For my last level 3 red slot, I actually run 2 copies of the starter deck Jesmon Solarmon, because right now in the meta, Royal Knights and other decks are able to reduce the cost of cards on play, and Solarmon stopping that I feel is a fantastic defensive option for this deck. However, if you are looking for a more Jesmon focused option here, I would definitely recommend using the starter deck Huckmon in this case, who allows you to get +1 memory whenever you play Sistermon on your turn. This comboing with some of the other effects from BT13 is actually fantastic. So moving up to our level 4s, the first one we're going to feature here is 3 copies of the BT6 Bow Huckmon. He doesn't have any on-play effects or on-Digivolve effects, but he does have that really nice inheritance of being able to remove a 5k Digimon off the board. This is really nice in case you want to get past like some weaker blockers that are out there. Next up, we have 3 copies of the starter deck Bow Huckmon, who, like the previous Bow Huckmon, doesn't have any on-play or on-Digivolve effects, but inheritance if Digimon has Huckmon in its name or Royal Knights in its traits, you get +1000 DP on every turn. And finally, we have 4 copies of the BT13 Bow Huckmon, who, similarly to the Huckmon of the same set, whenever you play a Sistermon, he's going to allow you to Digivolve into a Saber Huckmon. However, instead of this time it being free, it is cost -2. Additionally, on inheritance, he has the same effect, allowing you to gain +1 memory whenever you would play a Sistermon during your turn. Keep in mind that whenever you do this combo of like playing the Sistermon and then Digivolving, you can't like retroactively go back and get that same Digimon's inheritance effect to get the +1 memory, so keep that in mind. So moving on to our level 5s, the first one we're going to have is the 1 copy of the BT6 Restricted Saber Huckmon. He allows you to play a Sistermon whenever he's Digivolved into from your hand, and then of course he has that golden coveted effect of being able to unsuspend whenever you have a Sistermon on the board and he attacks. Moving along, we've got 2 copies of the Saber Huckmon from the Jesmon starter deck, who allows you to attack active Digimon whenever he Digivolves that single turn, and then it lets you play a Sistermon from hand or trash on attack for inheritance. We're also going to be running 4 copies of the BT13 Saber Huckmon, who, like the Bow Huckmon before him, allows you to Digivolve into a Jesmon for cost -2 whenever you would play a Sistermon. And then he, like the Saber Huckmon before him, on inheritance allows you to play a Sistermon from hand or trash whenever you attack. And the last level 5 we're going to run in the deck is going to be 1 copy of BT8 Chimeramon. Now you're probably wondering, East, why are you running this card that doesn't really synergize with Jesmon very well? Well, that might be where you're wrong. There's a very talented and well-respected Digimon player by the name of Dan Vang, who appeared on the Digi Showdown not too long ago. And when he did, he was running Jesmon with this card in the deck. And so what he could do is that if his Jesmon or his big red boss monster got destroyed, he could use the remaining Sistermons, maybe 2 of the level 4 Sistermons, and Digivolve them into Chimeramon for free using the Joggers or DNA Digivolution ability, and then he could get back into another Jesmon right after that. And so while this card isn't going to be important in every game, it does give you a little bit of comeback potential in case you do lose your level 6. Alright, so now we're finally at our level 6s, and our first level 6 is going to be the starter deck Jesmon, 2 copies of this guy. He's a little more expensive at 4 cost for Digivolve, but he does have the coveted Blitz effect, which means you can attack before your opponent's turn starts, even if the memory swings over to their turn. Of course, like all other Jesmons, he's going to be able to play a Sistermon whenever you attack, and then additionally, whenever you do play that Sistermon, he's going to get +3000 DP for the turn, as well as security attack +1. Next up, we're going to have 1 copy of the Jesmon X-Antibody from the BT10 set. Now, he is a little bit weaker than Jesmon at only 11th KDP, but he is a little bit cheaper on Evolve for 3 instead of 4. And he has Piercing, which, again, pretty good ability. And like other Jesmon, he has a way to help you play a Sistermon, this time going to be on Digivolution. Whenever you Digivolve into this guy, you can just play a Sistermon from your hand or trash. And then if you do, until the end of your opponent's turn, all of your Digimon are going to gain 2000 DP, and then they can all attack unsuspended Digimon. Very threatening indeed if you have a board full of Sistermons and your opponent's field looks like Weenie Hut Jr. And then wrapping up our Jesmons, we're going to have one copy of the BT13 Jesmon. Now you're probably wondering, why would you even run this card? It doesn't really have the ability to play Sistermons or anything like that. But what is really important right now is giving this deck some bit of removal outside of just the 5k from the Bao Huckmon. And the new Jesmon does this, being able to pop a 6000 or lower collection of Digimon on the field, and then for every other Digimon you have, you can increase that threshold by 2000. So with just 2 Sistermons on the board, and this guy, you're going to be able to pop a total of 10k on the board on your opponent's side. And again, if you can go wider than that, then the effect only gets better. Additionally, on all turns, for every other Digimon you have, all of your Digimon, oh, excuse me, too excited. For every other Digimon you have on the board, all of your Digimon gain plus 1000 DP, so he buffs everybody massively. And then rounding out the level 6s, we're going to have 2 copies of the BT10 Gankumon X-Antibody. This guy is more of a defensive play, just considering what the meta looks like right now. Some of those powerful decks in the meta right now are able to clear boards using DP minus effects, Shine Greymon, as well as card removal effects like sending things back to your hand or back to the deck. Now, this card specifically prevents that for your entire board. Additionally, he's a blocker, which is nice, and we're typically not going to be Digivolving into this guy. We're going to be using this guy when we get to our level 7. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Alright, and so we move on to our final Digimon for the deck. That's going to be the level 7s. Now, this deck is going to feature 2 copies of Jesmon GX. I think some people like to run 3, and if you want, you can mess with your Sistermon ratios. We'll talk about in a moment, but I like to run 2 for the deck just because I feel like I am already so limited for space. This guy's going to synergize well with our Gankumon X-Antibody, allowing us to take a Royal Knights Digimon card, which Gankumon X is, and slot it up underneath this card. And when you do, you get to activate that specific card's Digivolution effect. And with Gankumon X being able to stop cards from having their DP minus and stopping cards from being sent back to the hand or the deck, that makes your board very, very sticky and annoying to deal with. Additionally, this guy's got all the good effects. He's got Blitz, he's got Piercing, he's got Blocker, and he's got Security Attack Plus. So he's got the rondo of effects that you're going to want to have for a Jesmon deck. So before I talk about the options and or tamers, I want to take a look at the Sistermon in the deck. You've probably noticed that I haven't really talked about them, and that's because I wanted to focus on like the Huckmon and Jesmon stuff as a whole, and then the Sistermon I wanted to give its own segment to. So Sistermon, we're going to actually be running 10 copies of Sistermon in this deck, and the first 2 we're going to have are going to be 2 copies of Sistermon Blanc from the BT6 set. She's a cheap 3-cost Digimon that allows you to draw, so if you don't have a level 3 in hand, one of your red level 3 Huckmons or Solarmon, she's going to be a great choice to also get a little bit of card draw to maybe find that card. And then additionally, whenever you have a Huckmon named or Royal Knights typed Digimon on the board, all of your Sistermon gain blocker. Next up, we've got 2 copies of the Sistermon Blanc from the Jesmon starter deck, who is like the previous one, except you discard 1 and you get to draw 2 cards. And then additionally, she gives one of your Huckmon named or Royal Knights typed Digimon decoy. Keep in mind that it has to be either red or black, so you can't like use this for like Examon or something like that. Not that he needs it. And then next up, we're going to have 2 copies of the Sistermon Noir, or Ciel if you're playing the English version of the game. So this one's from BT6 again, where on all turns, your Huckmon named or Royal Knights type Digimon gain 2000 DP, and then when she's played, you gain +1 memory. Next up, we're going to have 2 copies of the BT10 Sistermon Ciel. This card is going to be your burst card. If I were you, I would try to save this card for moments where you're really trying to make a big comeback, because she's great for that. On play, she allows you to Digivolve one of your Digimon into a Royal Knights typed Digimon, and then when you do that, you get memory +1. Now keep in mind that memory +1 is actually a once per turn effect, where anytime you Digivolve into a Huckmon named or Royal Knights type Digimon, you get +1. But because the original on play effect is locked to only Royal Knights type Digimon, you're kind of in a bind there if you're trying to Digivolve a level 3 into level 4. And then finally, probably the least useful of the bunch is going to be 2 copies of the starter deck Jesmon Sistermon Noir. On play, she lets you search top 3 and grab a card, and the rest are discarded, but additionally on all turns, she gives you Reboot. Now, Reboot's fantastic once you get to your Jesmon, and then you're able to give it blocker in some form or fashion, for example, Jesmon GX. But outside of that, this card is not super useful except for the search ability. And then finally, rounding out the deck, we're going to take a look at our option cards. We're going to have 4 copies of From Master's Disciple. Fantastic search card, very cheap at 2 costs, lets us look at the top 3, grab either a Huckmon or Sistermon named or Royal Knights type Digimon, add it to our hand, rest gets into the trash. Now, getting sent to the trash is actually not that bad. In a lot of cases, what you want to do is actually send your Sistermon to the trash, so once you get to your Jesmon or higher, you can just pull them out using their effects. Additionally, this has the nice little delay effect of whenever you Digivolve during the turn, you can cost -1. And this, plus the new BT13 set stuff, really makes the Digivolution cost super low here. A lot of the folks in the comments below in my previous deck profile videos asked me to actually put up a full picture of the actual deck list so you guys can use this as a template to build the deck on your end. That said, here you go. If you have any comments or questions, you feel free to ask me in the comments below. Alright, so let's actually take a look at the game plan for the deck as well as a couple of crucial combos. Now, the early game is pretty straightforward for this deck. You're going to be using low-cost Digimon here to just search out cards, and there's tons of ways to do this with so many search abilities in the deck. Well, maybe not this guy, but again, so much search in this deck with all of these cards here. And so what are we searching for exactly? Well, of course, you're going to be looking for your bigger pieces and some of your burst pieces here, like these cards. Additionally, you want to be looking for the bosses for the deck, Jesmon GX, the X-Antibody Jesmon, as well as the Gankumon X-Antibody. You don't have to assemble all of these, but getting enough of them to actually make a difference on board is going to be really useful. So now let's take a look at the second phase of our game plan, which means once we've gotten to our level 5 here and we've gotten the pieces we've needed in hand, we can basically, let's imagine we have just a single memory here, we can play a Sistermon block here, and we're going to, first of all, because of the Bao Huckmon and Huckmon inheritance effects from the new BT13 support, we're going to first gain 2 memory off of playing Sistermon block, and then we're going to be able to Digivolve for cost -2 into Jesmon, and we're going to play the 4 cost copy Jesmon here, and only 2 costs for that guy, and now we have Blitz activated. Now we can attack using Blitz, and then on attack we're going to be able to play another Sistermon here. You can do something like, Sistermon Noir here to leave your opponent on 1, or if you want to go one step beyond that, you can play the starter deck Sistermon Ciel. And on play, she's going to allow us to Digivolve even further into something like a Jesmon GX. Now, once we get to our Jesmon GX, we can also use his effect to slot the Gankumon X-Antibody up under him and gain his effect of being able to play another Sistermon. And then cost -1. Keep in mind, we do have to pay for this Jesmon GX cost, but it is going to be cost -1, so it's only 4. And so that's going to be 2. We're going to go to 6, go to 5. So again, kind of an expensive play if you want to go super wide. You'll probably be able to finish off the game next turn, but keep in mind, you are giving your opponent a ton of memory to work with. Or you can take the safer route here and just stick with the Jesmon, leaving your opponent on 2. And keep in mind that if you also have access to From Master to Disciple, it's a good cost -1. And in some cases, you can even make your Jesmon free if you have the right Sistermon out on the field. Alright, so now let's take a look at a play we can make if we're a little bit behind in the game. Let's imagine that our opponent has a big Digimon that we want to swing over, but we only have, let's say, 1 memory, and we have our Bao Huckmon from Raising, who happens to have the Huckmon from BT13 in his sources. So what we can do is we can play our BT10 Sistermon Ciel for 4. That's going to put us all the way to 3, but our Huckmon effect is going to activate, giving us +1 memory because we played a Sistermon. Go to 2, and then we're going to activate our Bao Huckmon's effect of being able to Digivolve for cost -2 whenever we play a Sistermon. And so now, for 1 cost, we can go into Saber Huckmon. Now, we're also going to activate Sistermon Ciel's effect, which allows us to Digivolve one of our Digimon into a Royal Knights, and then when we do, we're going to get +1 memory. So we'll do this into Jesmon for 4. Again, kind of expensive here, going to 7, and then +1 for 6. The good thing here is that our Jesmon does have the ability to attack because he does have Blitz, so we can attack, and then using his attack ability, we can first play something like a Sistermon Noir, who's going to give us +1 memory, and now we can activate the Bao Huckmon's inheritance effect of giving us +1 memory again, going to 4, and we can also activate the Saber Huckmon's effect on attack of being able to play another Sistermon. I would recommend playing something like, again, another Sistermon Noir here to gain another memory off of her effect for free, or you can play something like the Blanc, who gives you Decoy, or I would recommend playing the other Sistermon Noir here, who would give your board Blocker. And while you are giving your opponent a little bit of memory here at 4, you do have a pretty decent board to compensate for that. Now, having 3 blockers out here, plus your Jesmon being plus 2k from the Sistermon Noir, is pretty decent trade-off, I think, if you're going to be giving away that much memory. So now I want to talk a little bit about Jesmon in the current BT13 meta. Now, this deck did get the fantastic support that I think it needed. allowing it to go not only tall but also wide at the same time, being able to build up to your big Digimon while also filling out the board with Sistermons to protect it. One of the issues that I have run into with this deck is that where in its heyday, Jesmon didn't really have as many problems or threats on the board to worry about, now there's so much removal in the game that your Sistermon can be stripped away and then your Jesmon is left bare and exposed to some bigger effects. And because decks now have removal from virtually level 4 onwards, and even in just some tamers, it makes it very scary to be running a ton of Sistermon. Not only that, but you also open up yourself to the occasional Death X-Mon, which means that there are a lot of targets for this deck. Also, without running any tamers in the deck, again, space is already so limited trying to fit in all of your boss monsters as well as your Sistermon, that I think it's really tough to make sure that you have enough memory to work with every turn. If your opponent is smart and they choke you out, it's going to be a tough game. And if that is the case, you're probably going to have to rely on that one big burst turn to set up a huge board that they can't break, and that's how you're going to make a comeback. And that's where I think this deck honestly shines, and that is it is an explosion deck. You have your one huge turn, and then your opponent tries to break it, and if they can't break it, then you just win the game the following turn. If they do break it though, you're kind of back at square one, and if you don't have anything in raising, it's going to be really tough to make a comeback and win. As long as you make smart plays, make sure not to overexpose yourself too much, and try to make sure you make full value of all the memory that you're given every single turn, this deck can do quite well. And if you do manage to get to your Jesmon GX and are also able to slot in that Gameplan X-Antibody, the board becomes nigh unbreakable. So if you can get there, then I feel like you're in a really good position, but outside of that, it's going to be a little bit tougher. And so that's going to wrap it up for our BT13 VS Royal Knights edition of the Jesmon deck, with all of the new updated support that it received. Again, fantastic deck, very explosive, and look, if there's anything that you guys think that should be changed in the deck or any tweaks that you would make, let me know in the comments below. Also, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those down there as well. Anyway, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.